It was late August 2016, and summer in Washington, D.C. was beginning to die. The sky hung low with heavy gray clouds, casting a dull shadow over the city streets. The air was thick, hot, and smelled faintly of ozone storm was coming. I, Aaron Mitchell, had just wrapped up the most exhausting week of my career at a mid-sized software firm. Crashes, deadlines, code audits, it was the kind of week that turns your brain into soup. At around 3:00 p.m., as I was slouched over my terminal, debugging a nightmare of recursive loops, my friend Kevin Dawson popped his head into my cubicle. He was grinning like a kid who just found fireworks under his dad's bed. "Dude," he said, knocking on the monitor, "shut this thing off. I've got a plan." That grin meant one thing: road trip. Kevin and I were notorious for our spontaneous weekend getaways. We weren't the type to wait for permission or plan with precision. We just packed, drove, and found adventure in forgotten corners of the country. Forests, trails, ghost towns, we'd done them all. But this time was different. We hit Route 39, Kevin said, pulling up a barely visible trail on Google Maps, into the Appalachians. "I read about this old fire tower out there, abandoned since the 90s. Locals say it's haunted." "Haunted," I said, raising an eyebrow. "Dead serious. Creepy Reddit threads. People go missing. Weird radio frequencies. Fog so thick it swallows headlights." I should have said no. Every red flag waved in my mind. But I was burned out. I needed an escape. And foggy mountains sounded better than fluorescent lights and coffee-stained cubicles. By 6 p.m. we were driving west in Kevin's black Jeep Cherokee. The rain had started. Not a downpour, just a persistent, misty drizzle that blurred the windshield and cast the forests in a sleepy haze. Music played low. Bon Iver, The National, and Kevin's collection of creepy ambient tracks that he called mood music. We stopped for gas and snacks somewhere in rural Virginia. An old man at the counter looked up when he heard us mention Route 39. "You boys going up there in this weather?" he asked, his voice like gravel in a blender. "Roads get washed out real easy, and the woods up there, they ain't right." Kevin just smiled. "We'll be fine." I wasn't so sure. By 9:30 p.m., we were deep into the Appalachian backroads. The GPS had lost signal. The trees on either side of the road looked ancient, tall, crooked, whispering to one another. Rain lashed against the windshield, and fog began to roll in, thick and slow like smoke under a door. "This is it," Kevin said, pointing to a turnoff barely visible in the headlights. "Gravel path leads to the tower." We bumped down the narrow trail for 10 minutes before stopping at a clearing. A rusted gate stood open, and a wooden sign lay rotting on the ground. "Hillridge Fire Tower, 1.2 miles. We geared up with flashlights and ponchos and began our hike. The trail was little more than mud and roots. The fog swallowed our flashlights whole, and the trees creaked above us like they were bending to listen. We didn't speak. We just walked. It took nearly 45 minutes to reach the tower. It was taller than I expected, maybe 60 feet, made of old metal and timber, with a winding staircase that spiraled into the clouds. The structure moaned softly in the wind. At the top was a square cabin, its windows shattered, door hanging half off its hinge. We climbed in silence. At the top, the room was musty and soaked in mildew. An old radio sat in one corner, its knobs broken off. A water-warped journal lay on the floor, its cover peeling like skin. Kevin picked it up and flipped through the pages. "Most of it's ruined," he said. "Wait, here's one that's legible." He read aloud. "October 11, 1998. There's something out there. Tall, pale, walks like it's broken inside. I keep hearing my name whispered through the trees. Last night it was beneath the tower, tapping the support beams. I didn't look. I didn't want to see it. If I make it to morning, I'm leaving." Kevin chuckled nervously. "Campfire fiction, right?" I said nothing. My stomach had turned to stone. That night, we rolled out our sleeping bags in the corner and tried to get some rest. The wind howled through the broken windows, and the tower swayed with each gust. At around 2:00 a.m., I woke up to a sound that didn't belong. Tap, tap, tap. It was soft, almost polite, like fingertips on glass. I turned my head slowly toward the nearest window. A shape stood outside, impossibly tall, its head tilted slightly, as if examining me. Its face wasn't a face at all, just smooth, pale skin, stretched like wax. One long hand rested on the window pane, tapping. I couldn't move, couldn't scream. Then, without a sound, it melted into the fog. I lay there, frozen, until sunrise. Kevin didn't believe me, at least not entirely. But he was spooked. We agreed to pack up and head back early. Except, when we descended, the trail was gone. The fog had thickened to the point that we couldn't see 10 feet ahead. Every direction looked the same: twisted trees, dripping branches, endless gray. The GPS still had no signal. Even our compass spun uselessly. We walked for hours, and the woods grew darker, quieter. At some point, we found a small clearing with a pile of stones in the center, balanced unnaturally, like a ritual cairn. Beneath them was something wrapped in plastic. A jacket. Kevin's jacket. He turned white. I was wearing this yesterday. We ran. Branches tore at our clothes. The forest seemed to shift around us, like it was breathing alive and malevolent. We circled the same hollow 3 times. A tree we had marked was now standing on the opposite side of a stream. We were trapped. That night, we found a dry spot under an overhang and tried to make a fire. Kevin kept whispering to himself. I think he was praying. At around midnight, I heard voices in the woods, soft, familiar. They were calling my name. Aaron, Aaron, come here. It sounded like my mother's voice. Then, my father's. Then Kevin's, except he was sitting right beside me, pale and shaking. We didn't sleep. By morning, Kevin was feverish and mumbling about the Watcher. He said it followed him in his dreams, said it knew our names. I tried to keep us moving, but by noon he couldn't walk. I left him resting against a tree and scouted ahead. When I returned, he was gone. No footprints, no broken branches, just the empty tree and his flashlight lying in the mud. I screamed until my throat bled. I never found the tower again, or the jeep, or the trail. 3 days later, a search team found me stumbling down Route 39, soaked, starving, raving about a faceless thing in the woods. Kevin was never found. They said he probably got lost, fell into a ravine, or drowned in the river. But I know the truth. I still hear tapping sometimes. And every year on the same night I get a call on my burner phone. No number, no message, just silence and breathing.